Hi everyone, Britta Albert here. If this is your first time here, I'm a spiritual life coach. My goal for this channel is to help you overcome the obstacles that are standing in the way of you living your best and most authentic life. Today's video, we are going to talk about generational curses. And joining us is my husband, Stan, from Life with Stan. What is your definition of a generational curse?
I'm so glad that you asked that question. And it really took me a long time to figure out my definition of a generational curse. And I've been going through it for a very long time. And I recently found out some information from my past. Me and my brother was having a conversation, and we didn't realize that we were breaking trends and breaking molds from our family. Like, my dad's dad was very abusive. He was verbally abusive and physically abusive. And my dad, he never was physically abusive, but he was verbally abusive. And that mold or those abuse was coming towards me. And I knew even before I became a father, I did not want to say some of the things that my dad said to me, which his dad said to him. And I thought, to be honest with you guys, that I was just going through that by myself. And I didn't even realize that that was also affecting my brother too. Do you mind if I tell a quick little story real quick?
Go for it.
I was talking on the phone with my brother, and when I first met Britta, I have a really hard time of, I guess, speaking out. Putting myself out there, being vulnerable, because I don't want her to think that I'm stupid. And the reason why it's like that is because, and I hate to say this, and sometimes you just have to put stuff out there, is by my dad, I've always been called stupid, less than, and other names. And his dad always did the same thing to him. And I thought I was alone because I went through that with him, not realizing that, hey, you also have a brother, and he went through the same verbal abuse as you did. And so we was having a conversation on the phone, and he was telling me when he was in high school and middle school and so on and so on, that how he used to be afraid to speak out in class, even if he knew the answer, even if he knew the answer was right, because he was afraid of being called stupid and everything less than his name. And we actually had a conversation, and we talked about, hey, how we're raising our kids, because we both have kids now, we both have sons, how we're not repeating those generation curse. We don't tell, even when our kids, and this is the fun side of me come out, when our kids do the most unbelievable thing, and you just want to be like, oh my God, how did you do that? you still don't call them certain names to make them feel less than. You know, you don't do that because you don't realize I am 40-something years old. I don't want to say my age. And I still battle with that. I still battle, even when I'm talking to her and I need to tell her something, I still can hear my dad's voice in the back of my mind saying, you done it again. Look at your dumb ass now. Look at the stupid shit you did. I'm sorry for cussing on this, but I'm being blunt. This is how my father actually spoke. And I still can feel that in the back of my mind. I'm 42 years old. You know, that was, I mean, well. I'm 42 years old. Yeah, I know, I'm old. And I still hear him say those things in the back of my head. And I know how traumatizing that was for me. And I found out how traumatizing with having the phone conversation just yesterday with my brother. And I don't want to repeat those steps with my son. And I don't want him to repeat those steps with his son or his daughter. So through talking with her, I really realized what generational curse is. You know, but I've learned from her that you're not doomed to repeat it. You can be that generation that actually breaks that curse, where you're not repeating the same mistake as your father's father, and his father's father. You can be the one that actually breaks that curse. And it actually makes me feel proud of myself because I never thought about it like that. I never thought that I am the one who is doing something simple as, hey, I'm not telling my son that he's stupid, or I'm not calling my son all these other names other than my son, or I love him. I'm doing something that has not been done in previous generation. And it sounds weird, but I grew up in an abusive household, and that's how it was with my life growing up, those years that I spent at home.
Thank you for sharing all that. So where Stan calls it generational curse, you could also call it generational cycles. And what we're talking about is cycles of toxic behavior. It's learned behavior. We don't start out as hateful people. Stan's parents did not start out as people who would verbally abuse other people. We all start the same. We start as babies, and we're only capable of loving and asking for love. And things happen along the way, and the truth gets distorted. And when you've heard stuff, we live in the South, we live in the American South, and so there's a lot of the old ways. And if you are from a society or a culture where tradition is honored and tradition is a big deal, it can be really difficult to break away from these generational cycles or generational curses. But what you need to do is just ask yourself, does this belief system, does this cycle, does this pattern, does this behavior, does it serve me? Does it serve the newer generation? Does it serve truth? Does it serve love? And it's very difficult to be a pioneer. And I use that word specifically for one of y'all, one of my awesome subscribers who reached out to me, Katie, and we talked about it. What is it to be a cycle breaker? You're a pioneer. And there's so many romanticized ideas of being a pioneer, of being a cycle breaker, of being the black sheep, because there are some pros to it. It makes you stand out. It's your legacy. You get to go through this so that your kids don't have to go through this, so that your grandkids don't have to go through this. But at the same time, it's literal hell. And can you have grace for yourself as you're breaking these cycles, as you're breaking these curses, that maybe you're not going to get them all? And that's okay. It's okay that the generation after you is going to continue to do better and do better and do better, because you are the one to break the mold. You are the one to stand and say, this stops with me. And it sucks when you look back, especially if you have a childhood like Stan's, and I'm sorry to speak for you, but if you look back and you're like, why? Why me? Why couldn't I have had the childhood that these other kids have? Why couldn't I have had the life that I see on sitcoms? Number one, that's not real to most people. And number two, that's not what you came to experience, and can that be okay? Can it be okay that a soul that was strong enough was required to come into this bloodline, to come into this family line and break the cycle? It is definitely something to celebrate within yourself. And it has its perks, because it does mean that you're a hero. You're healing generations upon generations of future and past every time that you break a toxic cycle or generational curse. But I'm sure you can speak to your experience. It's hell when you're going through it.
Mm-hmm.
And you felt like you were going through it alone.
I did.
What did it feel like really realizing that you're not?
And for me, it was, and I guess I hate to say it like this, but it was weight off of my shoulder, because me and my brother, we always pick, it's me, my brother, and my sister. And I always thought that my brother was the favorite child, and vice versa. He always thought that I was the favorite child. Now, there's a good 10 years between me and my brother, but I didn't get a chance to see the abuse that he took. And he saw some of the abuse that I took, but he didn't see the majority of it. And so with that being said, luckily for some reason, there was a lot of love between me and my brother, because I idolized him because he was my older brother. But that could have quickly, I felt, pulled us apart, because with me really not seeing all the abuse that he took, but he still told me about it, and vice versa, I could have saw it as, hey, why does dad love him more than I do? Then why does dad love him more than me? And vice versa, he could have said the same thing. But since we had great communication with each other, we was able to talk about, hey, what each other was going through. And I have to give kudos to my brother, because we've had a long talk yesterday, and he actually apologized to me, because when he got into his late teen into adulthood, it was time for him to leave the house. Well, when he left the house, that's when the abuse really got bad. And he didn't realize when he was home, when him and my sister was home, that they were my shield for me not to catch it as much as I did. And then when I told him how much more I caught it after they left, it hurted him, because he never wanted to see me go through that. And it really spoke to my heart, because I always looked to him as my shield too, because he did take him and her and my sister, I can't leave her out too, did take a lot away from me, from that verbal abuse and physical abuse, not from my dad though. Took that away from me, where I didn't have to deal with all that weight on my shoulders. So it felt great that I wasn't alone, and we all went through it, from my sister to me to my brother. But it also hurt my heart that we had to go through that. You know, you always ask yourself the question, why did I have to go through that? And now I guess for us, since we're talking now, because my dad is passed away, we're starting to get together and ask, why did we have to go through that?
And it's healing.
Mm-hmm.
It's healing to talk about it. And if you can identify with any of Stan's story, or just breaking generational cycles and being the cycle breaker, being the black sheep, being that person to say, this addiction stops with me, this behavior stops with me, you are not alone. At the very minimum, we can relate to that as well. But I'm sure that you'll find that there are many, especially in this community that we're building, who are resonating exactly like you are. So in the comments below, I'm just gonna be corny and say, tell us your story. Let's start connecting. Let's start talking about it and continue the healing journey that you're on. I hope this was helpful. I love you guys so much. Again, if this is your first time here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if it's not your first time here, but you haven't hit that subscribe button, why not? Go ahead and do it. Hit the bell notification so that you never miss out on future videos. And check out Life with Stan if you want to see more of Stan. He has a YouTube channel as well. I'll put that in the description. Love you guys. I'll see you next time.